Okay, folks, strap in. Today, we're going deep into some financial headlines that are, well, let's just say, pretty wild.
Yeah, from Bitcoin to gold, stable coins, and even a little social media drama sprinkled in for good measure. It's a lot to unpack.
A lot. But hey, that's why we do these deep dives, right? To break down the really juicy stuff. So, what are we looking at today? Where'd you even start digging for this one?
Well, we've got some interesting sources, some usual suspects, some new voices too, all pointing to this clash between the old guard of finance and the new kids on the block, the crypto world.
Yeah, and that's been a theme we've been seeing a lot lately. Almost like everyone's trying to figure out like where they fit in this new landscape, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think today's stories really highlight that. I mean, you've got retail investors kind of panicking, selling off Bitcoin.
Right, exactly. Like they're getting spooked by something.
But then on the flip side, you have these massive institutions, these giants like BlackRock and Fidelity, and they're buying up Bitcoin like crazy. I mean, we're talking 5,900 Bitcoins worth over $500 million just recently.
$573 million, dollars, if we're being exact. I
Right.
mean, that's not jump change, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think they're seeing that maybe the everyday investor isn't?
Well, it could be a couple of things. They could be thinking long term, right? Seeing Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation, a store of value, that kind of thing.
Yeah, sort of like digital gold, as some people call it.
Exactly. Or they might be anticipating more widespread adoption, more businesses accepting Bitcoin, more countries maybe even incorporating it into their systems.
And that's a good point because, I mean, remember El Salvador? They're all in on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And speaking of El Salvador, did you see this thing about the gold?
Oh yeah, the $3 trillion worth of unmined gold they just discovered. Yeah, that's a wild one.
Talk about a potential game changer. I mean, 3 trillion with a T. Could that be, I don't know, part of their strategy with Bitcoin too? Like diversify their assets even further?
It's definitely possible. I mean, if they're looking to move away from the US dollar, reliance on the dollar, both gold and Bitcoin could serve that purpose. It's a bold move, but it's definitely gotten people talking.
And it's not just El Salvador, right? We're seeing other players making big bets on Bitcoin too, like MicroStrategy. I mean, they just brought another 15,350 Bitcoins.
For about $1.5 billion, yeah. They are doubling down, that's for sure.
And then you've got Dan Moorhead. He's the CEO of Pantera Capital. And he's basically saying Bitcoins is better than gold. Like straight up, no hesitation.
Yeah, he's definitely a believer.
Which, it makes you think, right? I mean, there's a lot of smart people putting their money literally where their mouth is when it comes to Bitcoin.
There is, there is. But okay, let's switch gears for a second. Let's talk stablecoins because things are getting really interesting there too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, you've got Coinbase restricting European users from trading some stablecoins because of those MiCA regulations.
Right. The markets in crypto assets regulations, basically the EU trying to, bring some order to the crypto Wild West, you could say.
Make things a bit more transparent, but safer for the average investor, I guess.
Exactly, exactly. More mainstream. But then at the same time, you've got Tether's USDT, which is, one of the biggest stablecoins, becoming an accepted asset over in the Abu Dhabi global market. And then Ripple just got approval for their own stablecoin, RLUSD.
Okay, so more regulation in some places, but then acceptance and even growth in others. Like, are we seeing a pattern here?
Well, it's a mixed bag right now. But what's interesting is, you've got these huge transactions happening with stablecoins too. Like we saw a billion USDT minted recently, another billion USDC transferred.
Whoa, a billion here, a billion there. Like, are these like whales moving money around? What's
Yeah.
going on?
It's hard to say for sure, but it definitely suggests, some big players are making moves. And then, of course, crypto.com is getting ready to launch their own stablecoin, which could shake things up even more.
Oh, yeah. And the total stablecoin market cap, it just crossed $200 billion. So this is clearly not a fad, right?
No, no. They're here to stay. I think it's safe to say that. Okay.
And-
But now let's talk about something completely different.
Okay, hit me.
Donald Trump.
Oh, boy. What did he do now?
Well, he's been making headlines in the financial world, actually. There's talk about a $1 billion fast-track investment plan he supposedly got. And get this, there's this DeFi project that's claiming to have bought $5 billion worth of ETH, all thanks to Trump.
Wait, hold on. 5 billion. That sounds a little, I don't know, fishy.
Yeah, I mean, it's Trump, right? So a healthy dose of skepticism is always a good idea. We have to remember he's known for making big claims, and they don't always pan out.
Yeah, we've all seen that before. But still, I mean, even if it's just talk, it's creating buzz, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's Trump. He knows how to get people's attention. And, whether it's true or not, it can still impact market sentiment, people's decisions.
Especially with that image of him ringing the New York Stock Exchange bell. Still, kind of fresh in everyone's minds.
Oh, yeah, after he was named Times Person of the Year, yeah. I mean, it all adds to this narrative of a comeback, right? Keeps him relevant, even in the financial world.
Keeps him relevant, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of relevance, I got to ask you about this whole Bank of England thing. They're keeping the names of the institutions they bailed out secret.
Yeah, that's a head scratcher for sure. I mean, where's the transparency?
Right. Like, who are they protecting and why?
Exactly. And it raises all sorts of questions about, accountability, the health of the system, the whole thing. I mean, it's almost like they're saying, trust us, everything's fine, but, without showing their cards.
It's definitely a different approach than what we're
Yeah.
seeing with crypto, right?
Well, for sure. I mean, with crypto, the whole idea is transparency, the blockchain. Everything's out in the open.
And even governments are starting to kind of come around to that idea, right? Like in the US, we've got states considering their own Bitcoin reserve legislation.
Right, following El Salvador's lead, it's like they're realizing they can't just ignore crypto anymore. It's forcing them to adapt, rethink their strategies.
It's definitely shaking things up. And speaking of shaking things up, remember that whole Meta outage? Like Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, everything just went down.
Oh yeah, that was a mess. And it kind of highlights another trend we've been seeing, right? This increasing reliance on just a few tech giants.
Right, like all our eggs in one basket. What happens if that basket breaks?
Well, we saw it, right? Communication disruptions, businesses impacted, people freaking out. It's a reminder of the risks of centralization, for sure.
So, I mean, after all this, after diving into all these stories, what's the biggest takeaway for you? Well, for me, it's just how much the financial landscape is changing, like
Yeah.
right before our eyes. I mean, you've got traditional finance trying to grapple with crypto. You've got this need for transparency, but also, these powerful institutions maybe not being so transparent.
Right.
And then the whole tech giant influence. It's a lot to take in.
It is. It is. And I think the big question is, how do we navigate all this? How do we make smart decisions, financially speaking, in a world that's changing so fast?
Right, exactly. Like, what does this all mean for our wallets, our investments, our future, basically?
Yeah,
And that, I think, is something we all have to think about.
absolutely.
So, yeah, there you have it, folks. Another wild week in the world of finance. Stay tuned. Who knows what next week will bring?
Only time will tell.